Hello. Welcome back to Let's Talk Ray Bradbury. If you have not yet subscribed to our channel, what are you waiting for? Do that now. All right, guys, so here is the moment I've been teasing for many weeks now. Finally come down to the 200th and final short story review of the works of Ray Bradbury. This project began way back in 2018 when I read the Bradbury Stories collection, all 100 tales, and now we are concluding the collection, The Stories of Ray Bradbury, which brings us up to a solid 200 short story reviews, all by the master himself. It's hard to put an actual pinpoint on how many short stories he actually did write and published. I've heard rumors that it could be anywhere as high as 500 or 600. It gets a little bit fuzzy because some of them were republished under different names and titles and repackaged in different forms. But we've done a large portion of his collection, and it's been a great enjoyment of my time here on YouTube doing that. But today we have one more story to go. That story is The End of the Beginning, fittingly, from 1956. And again, this is story number 100 of 100 in the collection, These Stories of Ray Bradbury. The way I've done all of these reviews is to do a brief synopsis up front and then wrap up things by sharing my thoughts and feelings. Today we're going to do that, as well as tack on a few more thoughts and feelings at the end about this whole project and where we might be going next here with Let's Talk. But first things first, the synopsis. A man is walking behind his lawnmower. He's not quite done with the lawn when the sun goes down and his wife comes out on the porch. They're waiting for something and they think it's almost time. The wife brings a couple of chairs down to the yard, a couple of wicker chairs, and they sit down and they look up in the sky. Tonight, it seems, is the night of the first rocket launch. Their son Bob is one of the crew members. They're going to launch into orbit, and then they're going to begin building the first space station from which they will then begin to embark out into the solar system. The man is taken by feelings of sort of dysphoria. He sort of sees the whole world, the whole time of the universe sort of laid out before him. He describes it as we've talked about in our world, the Stone Age and the Iron Age and the Bronze Age as all being distinct time periods, but he thinks that now, going forward, if this launch is successful, we'll begin talking about all of our past as a cohesive unit, and then everything forward into the future as something new, sort of the time after which man finally conquered gravity. They count it down. The launch goes off successfully. The man watches and watches until it can no longer be seen in the air. His wife goes inside, urges him to come with her, but he says no. He goes back out into the yard, cranks up the lawnmower again, and walks behind it, finishing his lawn as if nothing had happened. But then those feelings of dysphoria take him once again, and he imagines for a moment that he's 1 billion years old, but then he feels like brand new, like a minute-year-old, because this is the beginning of a new age. He imagines for a moment he's an inch tall, and then he imagines he's 10,000 miles tall, and he looks down and he can't see his feet walking below him on the grass. But clearly, he's been highly moved by the whole evening and what it all could possibly mean for mankind. So yeah, it's a wonderful little story. Hard to explain adequately with just that short description, because it really is more about the thoughts and feelings about the whole experience of being there. This story was written in 1956. That's a whole year before even Sputnik went off, but I think Bradbury manages to capture something very true and about that era, which is that in a few short years, the whole world is going to be out there watching, paying attention to all these remarkable launches, going right up until the moment that the United States puts man on the moon, and like the whole world is watching that broadcast. And it's amazing how these things became sort of universal events that anybody who had television was watching. This is big, groundbreaking stuff. And unfortunately, in the decades since, a lot of these launches have been relegated to sort of curiosities. Only super nerds like us are watching, and very little attention from the outside world. Maybe a brief mention on the news, but some of that excitement is coming back. SpaceX in particular has brought a lot of that back recently with with their first manned missions and civilian launches, and there was a lot of talk that, you know, going back to the moon and getting to Mars finally are right around the corner, closer than ever, definitely. So there is excitement about that, and I'm hoping that when that happens, when we finally put a man or woman on Mars, that it will bring the world together and excite generations, and maybe give us those feelings of dysphoria of looking at ourselves and seeing how small and insignificant we are. And I think that'd be a good thing for a lot of people. I don't think some people are capable of looking at the world that way, but I think it's important. And this is something that art and literature does on these stories, is it gives you those feelings, and it makes you understand your place, and it, you know, I think it encourages peace and cooperation as opposed to conflict over generally what should be seen as petty things. This is why science and science fiction are so important, is the way they make us feel and put us in our place, and sort of can show us that there's a better way than sort of our petty squabbles here on Earth. But yeah, that is it. That is the end of the beginning, a fitting story to wrap up the stories of Ray Bradbury. This, again, was published in 1956, a full year before Sputnik even launched, but Bradbury was definitely on the ball here with his prognostications about how these events were going to make mankind feel. So yeah, this project, Let's Talk Ray Bradbury, began all the way back in the fall of 2018 when I read The Veldt. At that time, I had no idea that I was going to embark on this journey and end up reviewing 200 stories. I was basically just looking for something to do with the channel, to create content to fill the days with releases, and then somehow it morphed into me reading through this collection, and then later this collection. Along the way, there were periods where I felt like, man, I bit off more than I can chew, but I'm a completist. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. So after many starts and stops, I've finally seen it through. I'm glad that I did, because it was just a great time. Bradbury's stories hold up remarkably well. Some of them have technological aspects that are passé or incorrect. We know more about the planets and the moons and things like that now, but they still hold up because they're filled with human truths and wisdom and ideas and feelings that are never going to go away, as far as I know. Things that will always make these stories remain relevant. And even if the technology and information is old and disproven, I think they're still worth your time to read. They still can enrich your life, and I highly recommend that you read both of these collections. Before you go, I'd like to share with you an encore presentation of my review of The Veldt from 2018. I'm going to end this project where it began by showing you that very first review. So here it is. And for the last time, thanks for tuning in, and I will see you again soon on a different show. See you later. Hello. Welcome back to Let's Talk Short Fiction. Doing another video today, which will be our 600th video of 2018. And we're just now, I want to say, about 10 videos shy of 1,600 uploads in our channel's history. So it's a cool milestone coming up here. Yeah, so today we're looking at a classic short story from legendary late science fiction author Ray Bradbury. I began reading Ray Bradbury very young. I remember, turning over the pages of the Martian Chronicles and Fahrenheit 457, probably before I was even ready to be reading that stuff. But he was always an interesting author to me because his stuff was, I think it was accessible to children, but of course any good fiction is appropriate for all ages, and even reading it to this day, you find more and more themes that he was tackling, and almost like a prophet, so much of what he was coming up with 70 years ago or more is proving more accurate than you would imagine. Alright guys, so this story is The Veldt. I did not come across it until college. It happened to be in this volume of literature that we used for, I want to say, my 20th Century Lit course. I don't think we actually covered it there, but since then I've read it several times and I've found it to be one of my favorites of his. The Vel, originally titled The World the Children Made. The original version came out in 1950, but it was re-released a year later as The Vel in 1951's short story collection, The Illustrated Man and Other Stories. So this is the story of parents George and Lydia Hadley, who live in what is called a Happy Life home, a sort of smart home, very similar to what we're building today, really, with all of these different devices and gadgets that do things for you. The house talks to you, it cleans for itself. But there's other things like it cooks for you, bathes you, ties your damn shoes because you are lazy. But the centerpiece of the house is what is called the Nursery, which is a sort of virtual reality 3D environment that creates scents and smells and sounds and lights that sort of reads your child's mind or your mind and projects what you are imagining into reality. The Hadley children are named appropriately, actually, Wendy and Peter, just like the characters from Peter Pan. They began using it a year earlier, as you would expect from children. They're recreating things from children's stories and from mythology. The Wizard of Oz, Wonderland, Aladdin's Magic Carpet Ride. There's Pegasus flying around and things like that. But a year later, some problems start to show up because they're taking an imaginative turn for far more darker material. They begin to imagine the nursery land as being an African veldt or savanna land, populated by long grass, hot sun, of course the classic watering hole where all the animals come to, and then of course the king of the not king of the jungle, but actually lions. There's actually a pack of man-eating lions in their nursery. The parents, who are sort of increasingly isolated by this house, all this technology that sort of separates from their children, makes them feel useless. Excuse me. Leaves them feeling increasingly paranoid. They sort of sense that they can smell the lions from down the hall when they're working in their offices, and they'll go in and they'll see lions in the distance, and like, what are they eating? And they could never quite see what it is, and they're hearing screams, and they're finding bloody items on the floor of the nursery. And when asked about it, originally the kids sort of deny it, but eventually they sort of fess up. And Mr. Hadley he's concerned, so he threatens to take it away and to turn off the house, to turn off all this machinery, and maybe try living like normal human beings again. And of course, this enrages the children, who are, like gamers today, who are addicted to their screens. And so he calls in his friend, the psychologist, to take a look. And basically, he comes up with the idea that, for quite a while, they were spoiling the kid, sort of being a Santa Claus, and now he's being sort of a Scrooge, and he's taking things away from them. He's telling them no. How dare a parent tell their children no? And the kids are retaliating. But unlike, I hope, in our world today, though I think maybe this is changing, the kids have a little bit more power than they probably should. It's probably not quite as easy to deal with them as you would expect. But he finally, after the last incident in the nursery, he comes in conclusion, yeah, we're turning the house off. We're getting out of here. We're going on vacation. We're going to rough it for a month or so and sort of get back to living instead of being doted over by machines all the time. And when he does this, the children just go berserk. But he's trying to pack his bags, get ready to go. He says, okay, his psychologist friend's coming back. He's going to help us pack and shut the place down in a little bit. You can have one more minute in it before we go. He just does that to satisfy the kids. He shut them up. Well, when they're given that minute, and the psychiatrist eventually returns, he's looking for the parents, George and Lydia, who are apparently missing. And the children say, "Oh, they'll be along they'll be along shortly. Come join us here in the savannah and in the veldt, and would you like some tea? And off in the distance, the lions are by the watering hole, and they're looking for something to eat, or they're eating, and meanwhile, the psychiatrist is being surrounded on all sides by the incoming pack of lions. And then that brings the story to an end. Yeah, it's a great story. I think it's probably been adapted in some way or another. I don't have that pulled up just now. Let me check. Adaptations, let's see. It has been adapted for movies on several occasions. It looked like it really hasn't happened recently. But this kind of story, I think, is primed, and it's prime real estate for modern film and TV adaptations. So I would expect to see something like that in the future, because it's that good. But there's several interesting themes going on here. I think the first thing to bring up is the Peter and Wendy is the names of the children. That is an obvious Peter Pan connection. And, Peter Pan, that is a story about, a kid who doesn't want to grow up, and yet he's engaging in things that are, they're imaginative, but they're a whole lot darker than you would have expected from a children's book. And I think that certainly echoes this story as well, but even on a darker level than maybe Peter Pan ever was. I think another big theme here is this overdependence on gadgets. We've sort of fallen into that here in our own world, and there's a lot of talk about people. You give up Facebook, or you close down your Twitter account, or you decide to, I'm not going to use my cell phone for a week or a month, or there really is this sort of growing unplugging, get unplugged culture emerging. And I think it's beautiful that this was a cautionary tale about that very thing, but it was written 70 years ago. I mean, that's sort of incredible. I mean, what gadgets did people have in reality 70 years ago? Yes, they were getting electric mixers and refrigerators, and first TVs would be coming soon, and things like that. But of course, there was more obvious technology going on with cars and airplanes and bombs and things like that. But so much of what Bradbury and his contemporaries came up with so long ago it's becoming shockingly real, and you don't know which was it they were visionaries, or has their writing informed the imaginations of today's inventors. Could go either way. It probably does go both ways. But yeah, guys, that is The Veldt by Ray Bradbury, published in 1950, 1951. It's a great story. It's 5-6 pages. It's a quick read. I actually I looked up on YouTube real quick, and there's several versions of it in audiobook form, but you can listen to Leonard Nimoy reading it, which is fantastic. So I recommend doing that if that's the only way you have to access. I like to listen to these stories being recited while reading along. I think it's probably the best way to go about it. Helps you really dive into the characters, and I think it improves your comprehension. Any good story sort of requires a little bit more close reading, maybe going back and double checking, and sort of teasing out what things mean. But yeah, there's certainly plenty to chew on here in this great little tale by Ray Bradbury. So hey, thanks for tuning in. Please give this video a thumbs up, and if you have not done so already, please subscribe. We need 8 or 9 more subscribers to hit our 500 subscriber goal here before the end of the year, which is coming up just a little over a month away. Can't believe December is coming so soon. Oh, and one quick reminder, as I did mention yesterday in that channel update, do have a busy real life workload coming up here soon, so it may impact some of my my free time for reading and getting out reviews for you like that. However, I do plan to continue to do videos during that time, probably a lot of workday vlogs and things like that, and then I'll see what I can get done on the weekends as well. So once again, thank you, and I'll see you soon.